Hi, I'm Gary, and welcome to another Friday video at the Power of Prudence, where we discuss issues pertaining to your personal safety and security. Today, I want to talk about escalation of conflict. I think I want to talk about that because when I look around me now and see the things happening on the news, or even get in my car to drive somewhere, conflict and escalation seem to be more prevalent than ever before. I think part of it is that there's been our society has devolved somewhat. We are more fractured. There's no longer one set or a smaller group of set of social norms and rules for everything that includes conflict. It used to be that, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never hurt me. So we were taught to take kidding, teasing, insults, and we had a reasonable expectation that those around us were brought up with that same set of rules or ethos of how to behave. So people might get angry, they may have a disagreement, there may be conflict, but as as tempers rose or things began to escalate, there was one set of rules. Now I think about, I take the Antifa stuff or some of the just the political and on politics and media, how it instantly escalates and people instantly go to radical extremes, severe hate, name calling, screaming in people's faces. Those were things that were, way up the escalation, the escalation scale a longer time ago. But now that's jumping in somebody's face, screaming, yelling, cursing at them, spitting in faces, all that kind of stuff, short of violence, is now brought out very early. And then look how often it turns into violence. Just road rage. I just was shocked at how easy that is for people that you would consider, hey, even the woman that looks like a housewife driving down the road can turn into a very dangerous situation. I drove in a lot of hostile environments where and sometimes in an armored car, let's say in downtown Kabul or in Baghdad, hey, I'm not, whether it's armored or not, I know that people might try to kill me, so I'm not going to stop for a traffic accident. I'm not going to let somebody hem me in or cut me off. I've been trained to take offensive action, to take them out, to avoid, or I'll wreck a car one time in Kabul. I was in a real heavily trafficked area, and okay, I might have been violating rules a little bit. I was driving by myself in an armored Toyota Land Cruiser. And people kept trying to cut me off and squeeze in. You don't know, is it somebody trying to get somewhere? Is it like a unmarked taxi? Or is it a bad guy trying to hem you in so they can attack you? And I recall that I was stopped in heavy traffic, and a car pulled up, with his bumper right by my tire. Now he couldn't get in front any of his car in front of the front of my car, but he was right up against the side and in the wheel well and the tire, basically going to force me to stop, or else we'd make contact, or I would have to back up, and then which would give him room to get in or go. And hey, I was in an armored car. I wasn't going to follow any laws or rules, and I wasn't going to be stopped by or stop for any cops or anything. So, I said, screw it. And traffic started moving. I drove straight ahead. It caught the edge of his bumper, snatched it off. Hey, the guy started screaming and yelling, and I'm getting stop and go traffic. He runs along beside. He starts beating on the window with his fist. He jumped up on the running board, and I was like, well, hey, I waved at him because I'm in an armored car. What are you gonna do? And I guess I thought it was funny, but on the same hand, I came back to the U.S. and my driving habits were pretty offensive. I think I was very aggressive, and I wasn't going to let anybody push me around or cut me off. And I've been to driving schools and stuff like that. So I used to, if somebody cut me off, somebody did something I felt was wrong, I thought it was my duty to punish them. And I knew how to drive cars in a way that can punish another driver. And I sometimes got caught up in that after I came back to the States and was trying to, learn how to live and work here. And a couple times that turned into escalations where, I had people screaming at me, cars were swerving at each other, and all because, somebody didn't like, that they were frustrated that they felt I held them up at trying to get across an intersection. And, at one point I realized, okay, I'm driving 90, 95 miles an hour. I have a passenger in the car. This car is swerving at me, and we're creating a hazard for innocent people on the street. And, I made a decision that, hey, I can't live this way. I need to let it go. It's not my job. But I've, since that time, we're talking about escalation. I've seen just how these days it seems like it takes almost nothing before people escalate. Hey, I had a woman curse me out in a parking lot of a grocery store a few months ago. I was trying to be polite. I'm walking out of the store in the parking lot. I see this woman who doesn't see me. She's had been in a space and she was backing her car out. So I thought, hey, I'll help her. And instead of walking behind, which is on my path, I turned and walked to the front. Why? Because she was walking or backing up. Well, then she stopped and was pulling her car forward. So evidently I didn't see the earlier part, and she wasn't a great driver, so she was gonna have to jockey her car to get it appropriately in the parking space. And evidently she took offense because as I walked in the front part of her, across the front of her car to go to my truck, I started getting my truck. She got out of her car and started staring at me, giving me the evil eye, right? And just like she was glaring at me, and I was like, I said, is there something wrong? And the woman said, yeah, you're a blanking idiot, and turned around and walked off. And I stood there. I thought of quite a few insults that I could have made towards her. Her physical appearance certainly offered me ample opportunity to respond in a way that would have been true, but also somewhat cruel. But I took it. I was like, it's not worth it. But I thought, I was just trying to help you, lady. And then I thought, how are people in our society walking around today, how many chips are on their shoulder that they are so on edge that something like that would set them off? And what would have happened had I escalated? What if I cussed her back? well, I'm a man, she's a woman, and she could scream, call for cops. These days, she might pull a gun out of her purse and shoot me. So it's just the society and where we are today really I think it means that we have to really go back to basics and how we were once taught about allowing ourselves to escalate confrontations. We have to control our anger. I'm not saying that you have to turn and walk away from every escalation or every potential confrontation. If I see someone committing a crime or being abusive, there are times where I have intervened and where I still would intervene. But I've decided you can cuss at me, you can yell at me. That itself won't cause me to fight. Now, I have drawn a line when I'm in a public place with Kimberly or my two daughters or any woman, that I am not going to accept vulgar language that can be heard by my family members. And I have exercised that, and I don't know why it's gotten to the point now where two business people, women in reputable places having a meal or a drink feel it's okay to drop F-bombs and curse loudly, even if you have little kids or other people with you. And I have gotten up and gone to people and say, hey, excuse me, my daughters are here. Could you check your language? And I'll do that in a restaurant. And sometimes most of the time, people get embarrassed and okay, I'll hold it down. And because some people still do have some manners, or when they're called on it, will exhibit some. But you think about that nowadays, there's some people that say, you can't tell me. And I've had people promise me they would dial back the language, but they're sitting with a group of guys, and it shortly goes back. Then I have to make that decision. Do I bring it, do I want to escalate and take it back to the table, or do I want to ask management to intervene, or do I want to leave? I have done all three. Once I did ask management to intervene because a man was yelling and cursing at his wife, being really abusive, and I couldn't take it, so I asked the manager to do something about it, and he hesitated. And at that point, then, despite the fact that it took a while, it was raining, I had my family settled, we got up and we left. If it's in a bar, I feel that bars are a different decorum. I wouldn't generally take my family into a bar, but I've been places where we tried to get lunch after church or something, and there's no seating available in the main restaurant, but they said, we can seat you in the bar. So I have accepted a table in the bar. In a bar, I believe you have to expect there's going to be more of that type of language and behavior. So I don't feel that it's on me. I think a polite people would recognize if you had a lady or kids with you and try to dial that back. But if I'm in a bar, I'm not going to say something to them about their language. If it's something that's consistent, frequent, or really abusive, and I think it's going to negatively impact my family, then I will just leave. That means there's no seat and we just leave, even if it costs me money. Like I've ordered an appetizer, I'll pay, or drink, I'll pay for that and leave. Or give me my food to go, I'll wait for it at the counter and move my family. That that's where I think we are in society. If you want to stand up for what's right, but we're talking about escalation. So why do I bring that up? If I go to a table of, let's say, like 4 construction workers and say, hey, you guys, I have my daughters here. Could you watch your language? I have to be ready that someone might take offense. These days, even if if it started escalating to leave to go to my car, you have to be prepared that a person might follow you out to the car. You could easily either get involved in a fight. You could be in a situation where police are called. You could be in a situation where somebody pulls out a gun. You do not know these days. When I talk about situational awareness, I tell the story of an acquaintance that was stabbed in a bar one night just over a minor disagreement. I mean, very superficial thing, but it was wrong person, wrong time, and that person, stabbed him a few times and very nearly killed him. So, stand up for your rights. Stand up for what's right. But when you do, and you just choose to escalate, remember, when we escalate, we sort of throw some gas on a fire that may be smoldering and it may be burning. We don't know how high, where it's going to end. I always I usually say it's like the fuse on a piece of dynamite. If you choose to escalate or intervene, you're lighting a fuse. The problem is you don't know how long that fuse is. So, or how big the explosive at the end of that's going to be. So you have to be prepared to defend yourself, to get out of there. You have to be prepared for what's next. It doesn't do any good to say, here's my code. If you cross the line that I've drawn, I'm going to call you on it. I'm going to yell at you and be ready to go. When I ask someone to change their language, I am polite. I say, excuse me, I have my daughters with me. Would you mind if you, changed your language, some of your language? Now, it's true if somebody becomes abusive, I might change my tone and my words, but always default or start with nice. There are still people out there that can be rude, that want to show anger and escalate at first, but if you calmly call them on it, they'll realize something's amiss and fall back, hopefully, on whatever vestige of manners they have. But some in these days can't say it's always going to work. So make up your mind ahead of time. What are your criteria? What's your criteria for escalation on the road? What things are you willing to take? Like for me, in a parking lot, do I need to retaliate? Even though the woman screamed at me and there were other people walking in the parking lot that never saw the whole thing to see I was innocent, just know this lady's screaming at this guy, calling him a blanking idiot. And, and I let her have that. So you have to make up your mind ahead of time. You do not want to get caught up in the anger of the moment. I flashed white hot when that lady said that. Wasn't really a lady, but when that woman said that, I got very angry, and but I already have decided what things, where my lines are and what things I'm going to take. So, have those made up or thought out and planned ahead of time so you can control your emotions. And then, if it's time to fight, if it's time to apply force or deadly force, then it's time for it. But at least make it a thought out, planned, not, not emotional action, something that's based on preservation of life and limb and dire need. Hey, that's my thoughts on escalation of confrontations now, because it is rampant. It's all around us. I really hope that our society can dial down some of this rhetoric and the level of anger that we have in our discourse today. Hey, hope you liked the video. If you do, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on the social media channels, and we'll talk to you next Friday.